It's Monday, May 25th, 2026, the 145th day of the year, and at long last, things are beginning to ease after what has truly been one of the most relentless and exhausting stretches of severe weather I can remember covering here. As of this morning, damage assessment teams are still spread across parts of Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, and Missouri, working to document the full scope of last week's outbreak. The situation is sobering. At least 12 fatalities have been confirmed across 6 states due to the tornadoes and damaging winds that swept through on Wednesday and Thursday. More than 310,000 people across a broad swath of the country, from the Central Plains through the Ohio Valley and into parts of the Mid-Atlantic, are still without power this morning. One of the most significant events was the tornado that moved through the southeastern Nebraska sandhills on Wednesday evening. It has been given a preliminary rating of EF3, with a path length exceeding 38 miles and a maximum width nearing 750 yards. There were also several additional reports of strong tornadoes across Iowa and Missouri on Thursday, and survey efforts in those areas are still underway. Further south, in the Tennessee Valley, the impact of Thursday night's squall line was immense. Straight-line wind damage was widespread, with a recorded gust of 76 miles per hour at a station just south of Nashville. Many neighborhoods in the suburban Nashville area are facing weeks of cleanup. And then there's the ice, something that hasn't gotten nearly enough attention. Parts of northern Arkansas and southern Missouri saw freezing rain accumulations approaching 3/4 of an inch. That level of icing is enough to bring down large trees and power lines extensively, and some communities there may remain without electricity for another week to 10 days. The pattern we began tracking back at the start of May has played out in a way that's been even harder to watch than expected. And unfortunately, there's still no time to relax. Another significant storm system could be on the way. So let's break it down. First, here's where things stand temperature-wise. The cold air that surged in behind Thursday's cold front is still firmly in place across a large portion of the country. It's important to understand just how serious this cold remains, especially for communities still without power this Memorial Day morning. By tomorrow morning, overnight lows are expected to drop to around 27 degrees Fahrenheit in Kansas City, 25 degrees Fahrenheit in Des Moines, and 23 degrees Fahrenheit in Sioux Falls. Up in Minnesota's Iron Range, from Hibbing to Virginia to International Falls, temperatures could fall to 17 or 18 degrees. And to be clear, these are actual air temperatures, not wind chills. Then there's Nashville. Tomorrow, temperatures there may struggle to even reach 31 degrees Fahrenheit during the day on Tuesday, possibly peaking briefly around 33 before dropping again to about 28 by Wednesday morning. There are still people in Nashville who have been without power since Thursday night, sitting in homes that continue to get colder by the hour, now facing multiple nights below freezing. If you are in the Nashville area and know someone who is elderly or without heat, it's critical to check on them today. These conditions are genuinely life-threatening for vulnerable individuals. The same concern extends across the Missouri Bootheel, northern Arkansas, western Kentucky, and southern Illinois, areas hit hardest by the ice. These aren't just inconvenient outages, they are dangerous situations, and the cold isn't easing anytime soon. And I understand, it's Memorial Day. People had plans, cookouts, outdoor gatherings, trips to the lake. This certainly isn't the Memorial Day weekend anyone had in mind, and I'm sorry for that. But it's really important to take the cold seriously today and check in on the people around you. Now, let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture, because understanding the overall pattern helps explain what may come next. For nearly 3 weeks, we've been stuck in a harsh ridge trough setup. A strong upper-level ridge has been anchored over the western United States, keeping conditions there warm and dry, while a persistent trough over the central and eastern parts of the country continues to funnel down surge after surge of cold Canadian air across the northern tier, the southern plains, and into the Tennessee Valley. What makes this pattern especially frustrating is that it feeds on itself. The ridge strengthens, which forces the trough to dig deeper. That deeper trough pulls even more cold air south, which in turn fuels additional storm systems, and the cycle just keeps repeating. Meanwhile, out west, conditions are a completely different story. As we sit here on Memorial Day dealing with the aftermath of a destructive week of severe weather, Los Angeles is enjoying temperatures around 79 degrees. Tucson is expected to reach about 85 this afternoon, and Las Vegas is looking at highs in the mid-80s through the weekend. That contrast isn't just coincidence, it's directly tied to the same pattern that's keeping the eastern half of the country cold and active. And that pattern isn't going to shift anytime soon. Extended forecasts continue to show below-average temperatures across the southeast, the Ohio Valley, the Mid-Atlantic, and the Great Lakes for at least the next 10 days. In fact, parts of the upper Midwest and Great Lakes have been running 12 to 15 degrees below normal for late May, which is quite remarkable. This kind of prolonged cold can still cause meaningful agricultural damage, even this late in the spring. All of that leads into the next storm system. And I want to approach this carefully, because at this distance, the finer details are still genuinely uncertain. And I don't want anyone getting too locked in on any single model outcome. But the signal is there, and it's been consistent enough across multiple runs that it would be a mistake not to bring it up now, while there's still time to prepare. The European model has been indicating that a strong area of high pressure will build over central Canada within the next 48 to 72 hours. That system is expected to send yet another push of cold air south into the northern plains and the upper Midwest by the weekend. On its own, that kind of cold air isn't especially unusual given the current pattern. What raises concern is what happens when it interacts with moisture streaming north from the Gulf of Mexico along the western edge of that high-pressure system. According to the models, that interaction could lead to the development of a low-pressure system over the lower Mississippi Valley late Saturday into Sunday. This is the point where things get especially important, because the two primary models are currently telling very different stories, and that difference has major implications for what people should be preparing for. The European model tracks that developing low northeastward through the Tennessee Valley, into the Ohio Valley, and then along the Appalachian spine toward the mid-Atlantic and northeast. If that scenario plays out, it could mean significant snowfall in the higher elevations of the Appalachians, potentially damaging ice accumulations across parts of the Tennessee Valley and the Carolina Piedmont, and a nor'easter-type setup. That could bring heavy snow to coastal areas from Virginia Beach through Long Island and into southern New England by early next week. The European model has generally been the more reliable of the two throughout this pattern. If you think back to the systems earlier this month, the GFS consistently tracked precipitation too far east and underestimated its strength, while the European model more accurately captured how intense things would actually become. So when I say it's worth paying close attention to what the European model is showing right now, I mean that. By contrast, the GFS also develops a low over the lower Mississippi Valley, but then pushes it farther east more quickly, keeping the heaviest precipitation offshore and resulting in a weaker, less impactful system for coastal areas. In reality, the outcome will likely fall somewhere between these two scenarios. It will take another 24 to 48 hours of model runs before confidence is high enough to start discussing exact snowfall or ice totals for specific locations. For now, it's best not to focus on precise numbers, but instead to consider the broader possibility. Another significant winter weather event could impact the mid-Atlantic and northeast from Monday into Tuesday next week. Further south, across the Tennessee Valley, the main concern with this system isn't so much snow. It's freezing rain and ice, which is arguably the more dangerous threat. Another round of significant icing in areas already dealing with power outages and damaged infrastructure from last week's storm could be devastating. Repair crews are already stretched thin, and additional strain could push some communities into a truly critical situation. I'm watching the temperature profiles closely across Arkansas, Tennessee, and Kentucky over the coming days. If the system follows the track suggested by the European model, the setup for a major icing event will be in place. Freezing rain doesn't get the same attention as tornadoes or the dramatic visuals of a blizzard, but around 3/4 of an inch of ice on already stressed trees and power lines is a serious, potentially life-threatening hazard for those communities. Continue to monitor the forecast closely for that region through the rest of this week. I also want to touch on lake effect snow, because it's another important part of this pattern that will impact certain areas over the next several days, regardless of how the next storm system evolves. The cold air moving across the Great Lakes on Tuesday is going to reinvigorate lake effect snow in a big way, especially downwind of Lake Superior. Areas near Lake Ontario could see an additional 12 to 18 inches of snow on top of what has already fallen earlier this week. If you are in the typical lake effect zones, like western Michigan around Traverse City and Cadillac, or the Syracuse and Watertown corridor in upstate New York, this is not a good time for unnecessary travel. These snow bands can create whiteout conditions with near zero visibility and snowfall rates of 2 to 3 inches per hour at their peak. So here's the overall situation as of this Memorial Day morning, May 25, 2026. The aftermath of last week's severe outbreak is still being assessed, and the impacts are significant. There are 12 confirmed fatalities, more than 310,000 people remain without power, and temperatures are expected to drop below freezing again tonight and tomorrow night. An EF3 tornado carved a path through southeastern Nebraska, and severe ice accumulation caused major damage across parts of Missouri and Arkansas. The larger weather pattern behind all of this remains firmly in place and is expected to persist for at least another 10 days across the central and eastern United States. Lake effect snow will continue to impact downwind areas of the Great Lakes through the weekend. Meanwhile, a new low-pressure system is expected to begin organizing over the lower Mississippi Valley by late Saturday into Sunday. According to the European model, that system could develop into another significant winter weather event affecting the Tennessee Valley, the Appalachians, and the Northeast early next week. I'll be putting out a focused update on that system once the models come into better alignment and the details become clearer. Right now, there's still too much uncertainty to pin down exact snowfall totals for specific locations. For now, the key takeaway is that the signal is there, it's consistent, and it's something you should stay aware of. Try to make the most of your Memorial Day, check in on your neighbors, and thank you for all the support during last week's coverage. We wouldn't be able to do this without your support. Your views, your shares, and your continued engagement mean everything. If you found this helpful, give the video a like and consider subscribing if you haven't already. I'll catch you in the next update. Take care.